the tutorial. In this next part, we're actually going to texture our crate that we were making in part 2. So, let's get on with texturing. We're actually going to organise our Photoshop document so other people in our team, or if you're working alone, you'll know what it is and where it is, and what layer the details on, etc. I'm the texture artist, so don't blame me for the artistic attempt on texturing this crate. Okay, we're going to rename this layer. We're just going to name it UVW. Okay, now we're going to create a new group. I'm just going to call it background. I'm going to drag this UVW into background. I'm going to create a brand new layer. Just going to paint it black, like so. And now we're actually going to call this black BG, which means black background. I'm going to put it underneath the UVW layer, and there we go. We're actually going to drag that black background back into the background folder. Now we have our UVW and our black background in the background folder. So collapse your background. Now create a brand new group called foreground. Create a brand new group again called detail. Now we're going to create a brand new layer in the foreground, and we're actually going to create some shapes on it, some cube shapes. I'm just going to pick up wooden texture. This is going to be our background of our crates, our main colour. If you want a yellow crate, if you want a red crate, go ahead and create it. But at the moment we're just going to create a sandy crate. Actually have it more orange, more wooden texture. There we go. Now actually just going to create 6 squares. Like so. You can make this a lot more detailed and have a lot more fun with it. I'm just going to do it for the tutorial. We're actually going to create 6 cubes. Don't worry about renaming them, because you can see on the picture where they are in your document. So just make them dead simple. Push that one over a bit. Okay. Now we collapse your foreground, go into detail. Create a new layer in detail. Ooh, drag that in there. I'm actually just going to apply some wooden slats to it, so it actually looks like a crate. I'm actually going to load my brush from my website. My website was posted on the comment bit on YouTube, or you can actually just look at the start of the video and it should say on there. Scroll down to the bottom and there should be a resources bit where you can download the brush I'm about to use. So we're going to load brushes. If you've just downloaded it, unzip it. And we're actually just going to load the brush that came in the zip file. JBAP is the brush. So actually just going to load this up. Scroll down, and this should be at the bottom of your brushes now. Okay, so now we're going to use the wooden slats, which is actually if you hover over it, it's called wood panels brush. So we're actually going to use that. Scale it down so it fits our wooden panels. Oh, that's a bit too big. Let's make it 380. That should do. Now I'm actually just going to change the colour of this to very dark brown, so people can actually see that the wooden slats are on there. Okay, now paste your first brush. Oh, small on this down. I'm actually just going to paint. You can delete excess off like that. Always remember to put them on different layers. It just makes it easier for you to apply detail and burn around the edges of it later. So I'm just going to create a new layer now. Create a new texture. Create a new layer. I'm actually not going to use any shortcuts in these tutorials, so you know exactly what I'm doing and when. Create a new layer. And we'll just need to smarten this brush down. So let's smarten that down. Oh, a bit too small. You can actually do this. Control T, and it'll can transform the whole layer. Just drag it down. Makes it a lot easier than just selecting the brush size. So I'm actually going to create a brand new layer again. And then drag this down. If you're a very good Photoshop artist, or you know how to do this, then you can actually apply a lot more detail to each of these and delete the excess, etc. and be a whiz at Photoshop. Okay, now we have our basics there. We're actually just going to leave it basic and plain like this. If you wanted, you can actually apply individual detail to each of these segments of the cube. You can do this by going into 3ds Max, loading up the unwrap again, selecting faces, and you can actually see, clicking on the cubes, you can actually see which face, which square in your UVW corresponds to which face on the cube. So if you wanted a shipping information on top of your grate, you click on the top of your grate and it'll go straight to the cube on your UVW. So as usual, you apply the detail, your shipping information, on the top in Photoshop. So let's go back to Photoshop. You'd apply the shipping detail in this crate here. That's where you'd apply the shipping detail, and it would automatically go to the top of your crate in 3ds Max. So I'm just going to leave it here. I'm actually going to apply a new layer and just write on it. So we're going to write Xyz Tutorials. Let's put this on the top, and we're going to colour it a different colour so we can actually see it. There we go. Now this is a perfect UVW. Well, not perfect, it's a bit trashy looking, and you won't expect this in a game obviously. But this is just a quick example. You can apply a lot more time to it and make it very artistic. So we're actually just going to save this. File, save as. I'm actually just going to save it as a JPEG. Most games save in BMP, PNG, or just the JPEG format. A lot save in Target and TIFF, but we are going to touch on them later on in the tutorials. Go on JPEG. I'm actually just going to save it as finished crate texture. You can save it as whatever quality, but most of the time save it as 12 large file. Click OK. Now that's saved. I'm just going to minimise Photoshop for now. I'm going to go back to Max. So once that's saved, close this off. I'm actually going to open up the material slab. Click the material, which is the first one. If you're using 2011, you can actually minimise this tab, minimise that. If you're in 2011, up here where I'm hovering my mouse now is the material editor. You'll have a little icon there, you'll have a little arrow. You can actually hold, and you should have two options here. One being this, with a little window here, and the other one being the slate editor. You can actually just click, hover down, and it will always open one. Open this one. There's actually a few tutorials on the internet on how to do it. Now click on the O1 default sphere. This is where you'll preview all your materials that you've got in your scene. As you can see, you can have a lot of materials per scene, but at the moment we're just going to use one. So we click on O1 default at the top. Actually, sorry, I've got a different map here. Go click on O2. You don't need to click on O2, you can stay on O1. Click on O2. Click on diffuse. As you can see, diffuse here. Diffuse is your texture map that you just did. It always means that. So we're actually going to click on this button here. Click on this button here. And it should come up with this list. I'm actually only going to use bitmap for now. So let's double click on bitmap. It should load up a navigation window. Just navigate to our finished crate UV, which I have on my desktop right there. I've clicked on it, and now I'm just going to click open. Now this material is in my slate window, and I can see my material on the sphere. We're actually going to drag this window, I'm actually going to drop it onto our model. As you can see, it's just still grey. How to make this colour and with your texture, it's very easy. Go back on the material editor and click on this little checker pattern here with the key next to it. This says show standard map in viewport. This will show your map in the viewport window. Click on this and hey presto, your texture map is now on your crate. You can actually close this off. I'm going to teach you just a quick render. It's actually going to go back to create. Click create, and now you can see your box as it is. We're actually going to render now. So we're going to render, We go to rendering at the top here, sorry. Click rendering, and click render. And now you should see your crate. But as I've only just rendered the top, we're actually just going to go down to the bottom and render it at a perspective, at an angle. So going back to rendering, click render, and now we can see our crate. If you want to save this as an image to show off, you can click save image file here with the little floppy disk, and you can save it like a normal image. Thanks a lot for watching. This is Xyz Tutorials, and I'm John. Thanks again.